and welcome to today's lecture. Today we will finally get to define affine varieties and be able to work with them in an intrinsic way, both algebraically and geometrically. But to get there, we need to get through some machinery, so let's get started. The idea, remember, is that we want to obtain an intrinsic description of the algebra and of the geometry of these algebraic sets, these sets defined as zeros of polynomials. We have come a bit along the way. So given such an algebraic set inside some affine space over an algebraically closed field K as usual, we have been able to define a geometry on this set intrinsically by introducing the Zariski topology. So we know that X is an Noetherian topological space. Also, we have some algebra. Namely, we have been able to define a ring, in fact a K-algebra, of regular functions, not just on the whole of X, but we've been able to do this for each open subset of X. This is still not intrinsic, but it gives us a rich algebraic structure on this algebraic set. So the data we have currently consists of a Noetherian topological space X, and some gadget O sub X that assigns a ring to each open set. So this ring is not assigned randomly, it's assigned in a coherent way. Namely, these are the regular functions. So the ring is the ring of regular functions from O to K. If these notions sound strange to you, this might be the time to go back to previous lectures and refresh your memory. What we want to do is to extract the important properties of this gadget so we get a general definition that we can work with to define affine varieties. So let's look at some properties of these rings that we have defined on open sets. So let's be precise. For an algebraic set X, we consider the assignment that to each open set assigns a ring, even a K-algebra, namely the K-algebra of functions from U to K that locally around each point can be written as a quotient of what I will sloppily call polynomials, but really of regular functions on the whole algebraic set. And just a small note, previously we've used the notation O of U, but now I want to stress the dependency on X, so I write O sub X of U. So what properties do these rings have? Well, any inclusion of open sets gives a restriction homomorphism. So how does this work? Well, if you have an open set U contained in an open set V, then if a function is an element of O of V, so it's a regular function on V that around each point, it's a function on V that around each point can be written as a quotient, well then, of course, this will be possible to do on U because U is a subset of V. So a fortiori, we get a regular function on U. By the way, these quotients have to satisfy some properties that were in the proper definition from the previous slide. And so because the operations, the ring or K-algebra operations of addition and multiplication are pointwise, so the product of two functions would be the function defined pointwise as this product, then this will not just be a map, it will be a ring homomorphism, even a homomorphism of K-algebras. And this is called restriction and denoted by this vertical bar. A trivial property is that the ring of regular functions on the empty set is the trivial ring. This is because there is only one function defined on the empty set, and a ring with just one element is the trivial ring or the zero ring. Also, if you look at restriction of a function from a set U to the same set U, then by definition you are not changing anything, so this is the identity homomorphism on that ring. And finally, if you concatenate restrictions, you get a restriction, meaning that if you have U sitting inside V, sitting inside W, then restricting from W to V and then from V to U by construction is the same as restricting from W to U. This is in general about restrictions of functions. So these were some basic properties that you've probably never thought of explicitly because they are just always there. There is one non-trivial property though, and that is that functions that are defined locally on an open cover and agree on intersections have a unique lift. So if you have, what does this mean? Pictorially, if you have U that is the union of two sets, so something like that, U1, U2, and then you have a function phi1 from U1 to K and a function phi2 from U2 to K. These are regular functions and they agree on the intersection. So the restriction of phi1, let's call this intersection V, intersection V. So the restriction of phi1 to V equals the restriction of phi2 to V. Then there exists a regular function from U to K, so that the restriction of this function to each ui is the corresponding phi I. Take a moment to think about this definition. So why is this not trivial? You might think that if I have a function and it agrees on the intersection, what could be the problem? Can't I just lift it? Well, yes, sure you can lift it to a function from U to K. But will this function be a regular function from U to K? And here is the fine print, because the definition of regularity is a local definition. So what does it mean for a function to be regular? It means that around each point you can find a neighborhood, so that in this neighborhood the function has this form of being a quotient. And because the definition is local, you can choose your neighborhood to sit inside these ui's, and then because the restrictions are regular, your function will be regular. So this boils down to the fact that the definition of regularity is a local definition. So more precisely, this gluing property that I have described says that you can glue these rings along intersections. Namely, if you have any open cover, so in my picture I just had two ui's, here you can have any finite or infinite collection. So if you have an open cover of U and functions, regular functions on the ui that agree on intersections, then there is a unique regular function on the whole of U that restricts to these phi I. So the basic properties from the previous slide are ones you would expect the whole time whenever you are dealing with functions. But this local global property, the gluing property, is something special. And now let us extract these properties to a general definition. So now we're looking at an arbitrary topological space X, and we define a presheaf of rings on X to be the following. First, it is a collection of rings, one ring for each open subset of X. So this is why it's called a presheaf of rings. And then you want this to be coherent. So for each inclusion of open sets, you want a ring homomorphism from the ring of the bigger open set to the ring of the smaller open set. How should you intuitively think of this? Yeah, think of this as the ring of some sort of functions on U, continuous functions or whatever kind of functions you like. and this you should think of as restriction of functions. So indeed, most of the presheaves we will look at in this course will have rings of functions. But this is a more general definition. So thinking of these things as functions helps you intuitively, but we will do everything rigorously. And we want these two pieces of data to satisfy the same conditions that we had before for our regular functions. Namely, the ring of the empty set should be the trivial ring. The identity restriction, the restriction that does nothing, that just goes from one, that we intuitively want to do nothing, does indeed nothing, meaning that when v equals u, rho sub uu is the identity homomorphism on the ring Fu. So remember from the definition, this should be a ring homomorphism that goes from f of u to f of u, and we want it to be the identity homomorphism. And we want restrictions to respect composition, as before. So, some terminology, the elements of these f of u that we thought of as functions, we call them sections. And these homomorphisms, as I have verbally said, are called the restriction homomorphisms, or the restriction maps. And we denote them by this vertical bar, as usual. So those of you who are familiar with categorical constructions, you might recognize that if you think of inclusion of open sets as some sort of homomorphisms in a category, really we are defining some sort of functor here. And this is indeed the case, but we will leave that for now. So it's a reasonable construction of rings on a topological space. Now, something that satisfies these properties is called a presheaf. If in addition it satisfies the gluing property that we mentioned earlier, then it's called a sheaf. So a sheaf is a presheaf of rings that satisfies the following. For each open set, if you have an open cover and sections, so the analog of regular functions, sections on the open sets in the cover that restrict to the same thing on the intersections, restrict via the restriction homomorphisms, then there is a unique phi in f of u with these phi I as their restrictions. So this means that phi I is equal to rho of u ui of phi. So this is what is called a sheaf. So let's look at some examples. First example is the prototypical example of regular functions on an algebraic set. By the preparatory discussion to the definition of presheaves, this is a presheaf and in fact a sheaf. So when you define a presheaf, whether it be a sheaf or not, you need to specify the data. So what are the rings? What are the restriction homomorphisms? So I need to tell you that OX of U, this is just the set of, or the ring of regular functions from U to K. And the restriction homomorphisms, so these rho VU, these are the usual restrictions of functions to subsets. So what we were looking at before we defined presheaves for this particular gadget is that it is a sheaf of rings on the algebraic set X. An example you might be familiar with from previous courses is the sheaf of continuous real-valued functions on a topological space sitting inside, say, Rn. You can do this more generally, but so here, let's call this sheaf C. So for each open subset of X, I assign the following ring, the ring of continuous functions from U to R. Continuous with respect to their usual topology and with pointwise addition and multiplication. And again, restriction is usual restriction. And this will work because the definition of continuity is a local definition. So if you have an open cover, it's certainly a presheaf. It's a sheaf because if you have an open cover, and if you have a function or a collection of functions that are continuous on all the open covers and agree on the intersections, you can lift them to a continuous function on the whole set. So if you have here, say U1 and here U2, and you have one function that goes like this and another function that goes like this, and they agree on the intersection, then you can lift them to a continuous function on the whole open set, not just a random function. Instead of continuous, you can look at constant real valued functions. This is a presheaf, you can check this, but it is not a sheaf. Why is it not a sheaf? Pause to think. Okay, so here is the reason. In order for it to be a sheaf, what I want is that whenever I have an open cover of an open set and constant functions on all the elements, I can lift them to a constant function on the whole open set I started with. So let's take x equals r for simplicity, and let's look at these two open sets, disjoint open sets U1 and U2. And so if I have two functions, phi1 and phi2, such that phi1 of x is equal to, say, 0 for all x in U1, and phi2 of x is equal to 1 for all x in U2. Certainly these are constant functions, everything is fine. But now if I take U to be the union of U1 and U2, there is no constant function on U that takes the value 0 somewhere and 1 somewhere else. So being constant is in this respect a bad definition. Why is it bad? Because it's not local, it's global. You cannot locally check if a function is constant. So the remedy to this is, instead of constant functions, you consider locally constant functions. And then you get into this construction called sheafification that we will perhaps get to later in the course. But to summarize, what we learned from these examples is that whenever you're dealing with functions, whenever your rings are rings of functions from the open sets to some set, whichever, then you can expect them to be presheaves. But to form sheaves, you want functions that satisfy local conditions. And this is why it was so important when we defined regularity, coming back to our algebraic sets, when we defined what it meant to be regular, we didn't say it should be uniformly one and only one quotient on the whole open set, but we said that locally it should be a quotient. So local definitions are important.